Welcome to the Direct Line, the official podcast for OADSP. We're excited to have you here with us today, and if you have comments, suggestions, or if you want to join us in studio as a guest, reach out to me at podcast@oadsp.org. Welcome to the Direct Line. I'm David Rustio, and today we have Andrea Whitwer speaking to us from OSUMC. Andrea, would you introduce yourself and explain what all those letters mean and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So I'm Andrea Whitwer. I am a psychologist at the Ohio State University Medical Center. So that's the OSUMC. And specifically, I'm at the Nysonger Center, which is a university center of excellence in developmental disabilities. So we do lots of work with individuals throughout the whole spectrum of developmental disabilities, as well as from little itty bitties. So we have a preschool all the way up through adulthood, where we do services and have clubs and lots of other fun things that we help to support in the community and in our clinical settings.
Okay.
So go ahead.
Well, no, if you've got more to say, go ahead. I mean, you're the star here. I'm just
Well, I realized you said to say, share something fun. I mean, I thought all that stuff is fun because I love the work we do at the Nysonger Center. But a little bit about me. So I'm a psychologist that did my training in developmental disabilities. I'm also a mom of 2 kiddos and a kitty cat, Stormy, who thinks he's a dog and likes to sit at the kitchen table, not like at the table, but on a chair so that he can eat dinner with us. And he greets us when we walk in through the door. So he really does think he is a dog and a cat. And I love to just kind of hang out and do stuff in the community as well.
Okay.
Probably too much information about me, everybody. Sorry.
No, no. There's never too much information. Now, I've been to the Nysonger Center. They have the gadget room, right?
Yeah. So, and it used to be back in the day, it was a toy and technology library, but it's actually, everyone should really check it out. It's now a smart home discovery apartment. So they literally have it's not a real apartment, but it's like a mini apartment where they have all kinds of technology that people can learn and understand, like how to have things to help people live independently. So settings for the oven, the refrigerator, the door, medicine delivery systems, all kinds of really cool stuff. So there's like a little mini apartment right there in the Nysonger Center.
So people could go, and that's what I did. I just went and I took a visit and a short little tour and talked to whoever was there that day. But these are things that people can use in their own homes, or that organizations can use to help support individuals who want to live on their own. Or so, who got to pick all that out? Because it was a lot of fun.
I know I did not. So I have a lot of fun sending folks in there and touring it to learn myself, but I didn't get to pick out the stuff we have. So Dr. Mark Tassé is our director, who did a lot of work with that. And Jordan Wagner is our tech guru at the Nysonger Center. So I think he got to go on the shopping spree to kind of design everything, from the special lamps and curtains that do their own thing to the oven and such.
So you've mentioned a couple of things. Do you mind telling us which one of the gadgets is your favorite and why?
Yeah, there's a lot of cool ones. I think there's the really cool, fancy ones, but the one that I think is awesome is the oven. And this is where my lack of technology will come in, because I'm not quite sure of all the cool things that it does. But it really has settings so that people can not worry about, their loved ones or their consumers or clients leaving something on the stovetop if they're cooking on themselves, and have some of the different settings in place. And I think that's just an awesome thing that builds independence for folks, because I think that's one of those areas that I hear in clinic all the time, is that families are afraid to let individuals cook because they're not quite sure about the safety parts of it. And I think that the oven and stove that they have just really helps to just put some bumpers in place to help folks maybe feel a little bit more safe cooking themselves or having their loved ones cook.
So is this a device that you add to an already existing stove and oven, or is it an actual new appliance?
See, this is when you're getting outside of my realm of knowledge. This is when I would encourage all of your listeners to look at the Smart Home Discovery contact information, and Jordan Wagner would be a fabulous person because he knows all of the ins and outs of it.
Yeah, I did see it, but that wasn't a question that I asked. I'll tell you what my favorite kind of thing is a camera that is in the refrigerator. So that if when the refrigerator door is opened, it kind of records, and it helps with inventory and knowing what people have taken or are using, and helps DSPs or caregivers make sure that they're well stocked. And I just thought that was the coolest thing. And I thought, I could have that in my house, and then when I get to the grocery store.
I know, right? It would be so helpful to not have to remember what did I have in there? Because I'm that person that has 3 things of butter because I remembered that I forgot the butter last time I went to the store, and so I end up just keep buying it. The camera would be really helpful for me. So, and I think the camera is and all of the technology is just such a great way to give that level of independence that folks need and allow DSPs to support folks where they need, but kind of give them space to be able to, have their own independence when they want it and sometimes need it for their mental health and just to, feel like self-determined adults.
I love it. I love it. So how does the work that you do and that your organization does, how does it impact the community?
Yeah, so in lots of different ways. So when we talk about a university center of excellence, we think about the Niswonger Center in general. Our goal is really to empower and support people with developmental disabilities and their family through kind of 3 different areas. So one of them is through service. So we have some direct clinics that we do where we do diagnostics and mental health and other types of treatment. We also do a lot of research looking at things from how do people use technology that we've talked about to how do we assess for mental health conditions in adults with intellectual disability, what treatments are available for folks who have mental health. And then the other piece that we do is a lot of interdisciplinary training. And so what that means is that we provide trainings for anyone who works with individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities. Okay. I do some research and I do some clinical work, but that training part is what's really important to me. And part of one of our big projects that I was hoping I could get to talk about to you guys that we just got some funding to do is a project we're calling Building Bridges. With this goal to help build bridges between the different folks that support adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities who also have mental health conditions, and really thinking about how can we take the training and the stuff that we know about clinical services and supports to provide training to direct support professionals, service and support administrators, SSAs, service coordinators, mental health clinicians, to really know how can we help support mental health in general, and then help support folks who are maybe having some of those mental health challenges at the moment.
Okay. That's quite interesting.
Yeah, it's an area where I think we're starting to know more, but often there's so much to learn, right? And I think especially I think of DSPs, and they have so much training that they need to kind of be able to take and come online. And so that's one of the things we've been trying to think about is how can we get resources and supports for folks in ways that they can use that's not going to overwhelm them, like, oh my gosh, I have to do another 2-hour webinar training on X, Y, and Z, which are really important. I'm not like taking away from those, but as someone who sits on those and sometimes finds them overwhelming and sometimes just hard to pay attention to, I think we've been trying to think, like, can we get some toolkits for folks? Can we have different ways to provide resources and like a community, right? So that's one of the things we've been talking about, is finding a way to get different professionals to talk to one another about what they're doing and learn from each other, and try to kind of have some folks that they can turn to when they run into a problem.
Yeah, I love that. I do feel that a lot of times DSPs are on an island by themselves. After the initial training and after they, are certified, a lot of DSPs are in a house with individuals by themselves, and even at the very beginning. So there's not a lot of because funding doesn't allow it, and everybody's understaffed, and
right.
And I think it's a great idea to try to use technology to help with these gaps, and to give people some tools that they can go grab themselves. I mean, I was so impressed at the Wysonger Center with all the gadgets, and I actually am a guardian of a young man whose his dad was a real good friend of mine, and when his dad died, I became the guardian. There are things that I have been able to push, that are technology based to help him, right? And so it is it's a collaboration, and I have to lean on more than just the SSA, who does a great job, and more than the provider. A lot of times I'm the one that's fighting for the provider to be able to get the tools and do the things that they need to be able to do. So there's not enough collaboration.
Yeah. Well, and that's hence our name. It's maybe a little bit cheesy, like that, building bridges. Is there's so many great things going on and so many different resources, but everybody is kind of in their own little pocket. Yeah. Right. And if we can just have some conversation. So that's one of the things we're doing, is having on Fridays, we have different learning experiences where we have just everybody that can come for an hour over lunch, and we talk for like 15 minutes about like a topic. So things like self-determination, guardianship, how do we identify if there's mental health concerns? And then the second half of the time, we talk about a case or a challenge or an opportunity, and everybody's problem solving together, right? Because I think what I've learned, I have some answers, but not nearly as many as are needed, and only my little slice of answers. And so I think, so having that, everybody problem solving together and sharing. I think when we did some focus groups when we first started the project. So before we even started our training, we had to kind of do this thing called a landscape analysis, where basically we needed to go talk to people about what do they need and what's out there. And one of the conversations I had with this awesome DSP, and she was like, well, I know some things, and one of my coworkers is a parent of a child. And so we're sharing resources with other DSPs when they're out in the field and they're texting us and they're doing these things. And I think that just stuck with me, right? Like, how can we all learn from each other and share resources? And like you said, it's not just one size fits all. Technology is a great tool. One of the other things that I've learned as a part of this project is having other adults with ID do videos and describe things and help to be able to talk, have things that maybe other people can share. Like, we developed a mental health toolkit, is what we call it, where it has a little passport of things that someone could take to their doctor or their therapist or whomever, that they can fill out to kind of explain things. And we did that working with adults with ID. And we're in the process of having another adult record an instructional video for other people about, how do you fill this out and what do you think about, right? So it's working with all of the different types of people to figure out how to best, support folks and give people tools that they can use when they're in the moment, right? So pulling up a website with some resources that you know are there, or videos, or having someone you can, call or text. Those are all the things that are going to help people feel more supported in their job.
Love it. So what resources do you and your organization have that could be provided to DSPs that are listening today? What can you do?
Yeah, so I think there's a few things. One of the ones, so the Nysongar Center Building Bridges project, we're in the process of pulling together a ton of resources and what we call toolkits. So within the next week or so, our website will go live, and we have a lot of resources. So I call that mental health toolkit. So it's on there. We have videos of things recorded. So we do have webinars, and I talked about how long and sometimes boring they can be, but on topics that might be helpful to folks. We heard things about like sexual health and how do I explain all these things. So we have a lot of resources for that and some different web links there. So there's a lot of stuff on our web page right now that could be things that folks could access. The other things, I talked about our trainings. So those are things that DSPs can sign up for. Our first session is full, but we'll be doing another one later in the year. Our goal is to have those before DSPs so they can get on and talk to each other about things. And we're also working on developing a stress reduction program for DSPs. So we know that's the other part of the picture. It is they're dealing a lot, but how do they deal with their own stress? So those are some things that will be coming in the future, just specifically for DSPs as well.
So you mentioned the website. So do your thing and give the website address so our listeners can write it down and access the information.
Yes. So our website is Nysongar, so NISONGER.OSU.edu/building bridges. And if you're like me and you may or may not remember that, you can just Google Nysongar Center and Building Bridges, and it should get you where you need to go.
Okay. Yeah, because I wouldn't be able to remember how to spell any of that. So
I know. Well, and Nysongar is it, Dr. Nysongar was a fabulous person, but it's kind of a tricky name to remember, say, and spell.
I mean, you and I were tripping over each other's names earlier before the recording. So,
That's right.
All right. So to close us out, do you have any cool stories? You have something that you would share of an interaction with an individual or a DSP?
Yeah, I've had the fortunate opportunity to interact with a ton of amazing DSPs over the years, both as I talked about focus groups and those types of things, and talking and interviewing folks, but also clinically. And one of my favorite stories is I was doing some home-based support for a young man an autistic young man who also had some significant mental health challenges that he was working through. And we were really trying to figure out how to teach him some coping strategies when he just would get worked up, and how do we kind of help support him in his daily living. And his two DSPs were just awesome. We were spending a lot of time trying to think about it. And in the meantime, the one woman was a knitter, and she would bring her knitting to the house, and she would be working on it. And she kind of started to realize that the young man was watching her and was interested in it. Well, here she ended up teaching him how to finger knit, and it was a fabulous tool for him. He was a knitter then, and it helped to calm him down. It helped to keep his hands busy. And it was just such a great example of how DSPs are just right. They're just there. They're paying attention, and they're leaning into folks and helping to kind of share their interests and meet people where they are. And it really helped this young man because he had a strategy to help calm himself down.
Well, that's wonderful. DSPs are quite resourceful, and
oh yeah, for sure.
They're the front line in so many ways. So
yeah, well, they have my eternal gratitude.
Oh yeah, mine too. Thank you, Andrea. This has been fun. I appreciate the time to join us today. And share your wisdom and your ideas. And, it's just been a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It was a great conversation.
Thanks for listening, and join us next time on The Direct Line.